let's edit some drums. Yo, Josh from Daybreak here. A few people have asked me, and by a few people I mean 2 or 3 people that really cared, that are really interested, how I do some of my drums lately. Now, I will say this, it's a little unorthodox the way I do it, and it's not without its share of issues a lot of the times, especially because I'm a very impatient person and I like to rush things sometimes. But that being said, I'm going to show you how I track the drums and edit the drums and mix them to make them sound like I do. So I track all the drum shells on a Simmons SD1200, and the cymbals I mic with, you know, whatever stereo pair of microphone of your choosing. So I mic all the cymbals stereo. I don't isolate the hi-hat. I put the hi-hat in the mix with the rest of the cymbals, only because I found myself basically taking the hi-hat ISO mic out anyway. So it just became one of those things where it was, you know, less margin for error the better, I think. So this is what I came up with. This is what I have. I started doing a little bit of the editing, but you can see that it's all, the velocities are all basically 127 on and I only have the kick, the snare, and that's I think that's a rack tom. I don't know. It might be the floor tom. No, that's the rack tom, floor tom. And then, okay, so since I have you here, let me show you, this happens a lot with the kit that I have now. And I don't know if it has to do with it picking up his cymbals, because I know that this in particular, this shows up, these ghost notes show up whenever he hits his crash on the left. And everything else is a little bit random, but so I end up, the first thing I have to do after I record is I have to go through and I have to fix all of the things that happen during tracking, which there's quite a few of them a lot of the times, especially with this kind of music, because Johnny plays fast in some of the parts. But I mean, when you have just things like this, kind of a 4 to the floor feel, it's not that big of a deal. But if you have him doing snare rolls, that one actually wasn't that bad. Let me see if I can go to something that's a little bit wankier. All right, I give up trying to find stuff. We'll find stuff on the way, I'm sure. Because look, we got all this. So yeah, the least likely margin for error, the better. The less steps it's going to take to get to the final, the finished product, the better. So work smarter, not harder. So I go through and I do this first, and I'll jump through this as quick as I can. All right, so I think I've got everything there that I want to get rid of. And of course, you know, we'll go through and, you know, at a bird's eye view here, we'll look at that. Yeah, you son of a bitch, you trying to hide behind stuff? Yeah, okay. So now that that's done, cool. And I'm sure I'll find some more as we go through it. Piece by piece. Now that that's done, I will go through and now I will quantize everything to 16th notes, because that's the easiest way to keep it as tight as possible. And also, like I said, Johnny sometimes plays fast, so there's a lot of 16th notes in his playing. So because I know what he's playing, it makes it a little bit easier. obviously you don't want the hits to be the same velocity every time, because we are not sterile robots, especially on drum rolls. You're not going to hit it as hard as you can. Well, I guess you could, but it doesn't sound very human if you're doing that. A lot of these are okay. I was never a fan of the kick and snare at the same time. Which I know he does that a lot in the intro, but it's his artistic choice. I'm not going to screw with that. I don't want to make it sound like I'm the one that played the drums here, because nobody wants to hear that. That sounds weird. Oh, because that's supposed to be a snare, Josh. Again, we'll take these all down to around 100. We'll just kind of make them all something different, right? These need to go a little higher. The cool thing, I'll take this. Actually, I'll take this opportunity to show you the stuff that I'm using for his samples. I guess I probably should have done that before, but got a little too invested in wanting to get all those ghost notes out of there. So I have Native Instruments Contact, and I use, it's called the One Kit Wonder. It's the Architect's drum kit, basically. This kit is awesome. It's almost a set it and forget it thing. There's obviously faders that you can bust out to different, which I do. You know, I've got them all bust out to separate stereo outputs, which are these right here. But there's one snare, one kick, and two rack toms and a floor. Or no, I'm sorry, one rack tom and two floor toms. And that's the kit you get. And I obviously the cymbals are actually really good too. But I'll use those if I'm just doing my own stuff. But you can also, I mean, you can parallel compress. There's master EQ sections, and then the mixer section, which you can balance bleed into everything. You can balance how much kick you want in the overheads, how much you want in the rooms, how much reverb you want on the kick altogether. You do it with the snare and the rack tom. I obviously am not using this one because Johnny just uses a 4-piece, so I just have this floor tom, and then your overheads in your room. I don't have them obviously mixed here because I just keep them at unity, and then I'll mix them here after I bounce them down to audio. We'll get to that. Let's finish doing this part, and then we'll move on. I do want the kicks to come through a little bit better, and they're not. So if they're too weak, it kind of bugs me. And the way I compress them, they breathe a little bit better too, so it doesn't sound so much like a robot. Again, we'll get there. I've kind of figured out his pattern, so I know it's a tedious, kind of a boring thing. A lot of people don't like editing drums, and a lot of people don't like doing stuff like this. You got to have a lot of time on your hands. You have to make sure that you know the process so that you can focus on getting it done. Because there's still a lot of stuff here that I haven't started doing yet that I'm not going to bore you with me doing, just because it's it, it's worse than this. It's more boring than this is. Cool. So yeah. You know what? Okay, so I think he wanted to flam there. So I guess this is a good spot to show you how I do the triggering. So when I set it up, I go to my settings and I have all these articulations here. Right now the kick is set up to C1 note and the snare is only set up to D1. But a lot of times when he does his flams, I need the second note just so that I can do it correctly. I don't want the MIDI notes overlapping. So what was the snare? Snare is D1, so I'll make it D sharp 1, just so it's right next to it. D1, D sharp 1, perfect. So now I can take these two, I can bring them up to D sharp, I can flam them out. And now we've got the Foo Fighters. Now we got Taylor Hawkins mode. Sounds much more noise. This is funny. Sounds like everybody's off a little bit. Got a little excited. Yeah, mics. That's fine. Those are scratch guitars. Okay, so now I've got everything kind of how I want it. And now I'm going to go through, and this is an extra step here that I don't do all the time, but for the sake of tutorials, I'll show it to you anyway. Logic's got a program underneath the in the piano roll area, or just I guess it's in the isolated section down here, under functions, and it's Midi Transform, and you can go to Humanize. So within this, you can control the velocity and the position of each hit, whether it's all of them or just whatever you have selected on the thing, right? So you can go through and pick whichever you want. You can randomize it. You can select your range, add fix through all that other stuff. I won't get into what all those mean because those are tutorials all in themselves. But yeah, so you can pick and this is the blue section down here. This is kind of your range, your value range. So you know, the higher you go up, I can't go up. Come on, you can do it. Anyway, the higher you go up, the higher it's gonna. Well, this is. I'm not gonna mess with that. So you've got your. So here's your position. Cool. Your pitch, I'm not gonna mess with that. Channel, I'm not gonna mess with that. Velocity. So my randomness will be here. We'll do, I don't know, 9. And then you can obviously, I don't care about length. I don't know if the higher you go with the velocity, the more dynamics you're gonna have. And then the lower you go, you're not gonna have any. And then you'll sound like a robot altogether. So the main things are just the position and the velocity. The issue with this is if you don't have set parameters. So like if you're gonna give it, you're gonna say, you know, you basically have leeway to do the velocity anywhere from 0 to 127, then it'll utilize that. So because I don't have anything selected here, I'll just select and operate. You see what it did? Because I have this position so high, it basically now it sounds like me on drums. So I'll just undo that. Anyway, that's the dangers you can run into with with humanizing. Now you see why I don't do it. I'm much more of a perfectionist. I'd rather just take the time to go through and just the stuff by myself. Sick, right? So sick. Okay, so now that I've got that all done, I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna edit the drums, or the cymbals, because the cymbals sounded like they needed help. Well, the whole thing seems to be a little bit ahead, but I don't really think that's gonna bother me too much. It needs to be off a little bit, right? So the cymbal hits being off is actually a good thing. That's one of the reasons why I like to record cymbals with mics and not through MIDI, because cymbals are very, very finicky, and they if you don't get them just right with the MIDI in it, then it could be a disaster real fast. So plus live cymbals just have, that's where your life is in your kit, the cymbals and the room mics. And that's a bonus with this drum kit that I'm using, the Architect's drum kit. The room mics, they sound so good. I mean, I had a buddy tell me yesterday that I put too much reverb in my snare. And that's because I do put too much reverb in my snare. I like to get a little too epic with it, and I shouldn't do it with this kind of punk stuff, but so I like to, I'm okay with most of the hits being off. I like to line up the ones and then bring it over, fade it back in. All right, see how he's starting to jump the gun a little bit, and it's starting to be a little bit noticeable, but you can see he's quite a bit ahead. He's excitable, that one. He's an excitable boy. So we'll just cut that, move it over. That should be good. Ugh. It's actually not that bad. I've had worse to fix. That was right on. Good job, Johnny. I don't know where he is now. Now he's kind of off in his own world. That could be because I was adjusting it, though. There's supposed to be a bass there. I haven't tracked bass yet, so get off my back, okay? But it's gonna sound sick when there is bass. Trust me, that bass line is badass, man. It's just that bass line. It's the same bass line that he's playing. The same riff, I mean. Cool. So you get the idea. We'll fast forward through this part so you don't have to listen to me do this the whole time. Okay, so that's done. Everything's lined up, everything looks all right, so let's bounce it down to audio. One thing that I like doing after I have everything kind of lined up and sounding good and ready to go is bouncing it down. It takes less processing power, and I'm gonna move this out of the way. And it's easier when I start adding a bunch of plugins and stuff to a lot of these tracks. It's easier on the MacBook. I don't get any lag. I won't get any dropouts and all that other crap. So I'll go through now. I got the kick, and I'll go ahead and bounce that in place. The other thing too is because I have all these grouped as stereo outs through the plugin, through the Native Instruments, the Contact. This gives me a chance to go through and make them mono, because again, I'm a stickler for the way I learn things. I don't like to change. I don't like change. I'm an old man that way. So get off my back, huh? I like to do things I like to do. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to bounce out the 6 tracks that I have through MIDI, which is my kick, my snare, my rack tom, my floor tom, my overhead, and my room mics. And then another thing I'm going to do is, right now, I'm going to add an extra snare track. You'll see why in a little bit. Now I have my room, or my rack tom. Make sure that it's good. I'll bring it up a little bit because that has a tendency to not be as loud. You will notice I had a lot of things on the top velocities also. Just helps it cut through better. These songs, like I said, these songs drive, so having them as a higher velocity does help in the mixing process. I know it's a little taboo to do that. Gosh dang, it still didn't. Well, whatever. But I don't know. Sue me. If it sounds good to me, then it sounds good to me. And that's one thing that I do want to stress a little bit right now is there's no rules to this stuff. I'm sure people have told you that all the time. If it sounds good to you, it sounds good to you. If you want to do everything completely backwards and that's more comfortable to you, then just do it backwards and make it more comfortable. You know, I have done so many songs with different bands, and I'm my own worst critic, and I'll be the first one to tell you that I'm not the greatest audio engineer, mainly because I'm just not patient enough to really do it, and I second guess myself a lot. There's a lot of parts in the process where I'm wondering if that's how I'm supposed to be hearing certain things. Where did it go? Why did it come down as rack tom? Did I? Okay. I guess that's my rack tom channel track. Yeah, I need more. I need more toms in those rooms. Oh yeah, these are low. Bring them up, baby. Cool. Yeah, probably not that high. Let's bring it down just a little bit. Going a little crazy there, Josh. All right, cool. Yeah, but you know, the more you do it, the more you start to understand what you want to listen for, and you start to find things that work for you, and that's That's all I can say, is if it works for you, cool. Then make it work for you. Okay, so I have all of these bounced down now, so I'm gonna get rid of these. Those are just my MIDI tracks. I also need to go through and I'm gonna keep that stereo. I'll make everything mono because I'm not, except for my overheads, obviously. Cool. I'm not, what do we got here? What's going on? Oh, get rid of those tracks too. And I can turn this off, and I can mute it and hide it. Bye-bye. Look at that. It's like I mic'd everything. So cool. So what I was doing with this, this is just an extra snare layer that I do with my Slate Trigger plugin. I have really cool one-shots that I got from Joey Sturgis Tones that for some, I like them. It's this fire snare right here. And it's mostly for so yeah, that is my drums now. I can go through and mix them at will. And soon we'll have a banger as soon as I get the real guitars tracked and the vocals tracked and obviously the bass tracked on this one. So that is basically how I've been doing drums lately. We got new stuff coming out pretty soon, as well as we're redoing some old stuff, so get excited for that. Maybe I'll do some more playthroughs or tutorials or something. I've also got a bunch of stuff in the works that I'm gonna do with another buddy of mine, Munir Hawk from Slant. That could end up being pretty cool, so be on the lookout for that. Thanks if you made it this far. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll get all the notifications. I'm not super popular, so I'll probably get back to you right away. I like answering questions. I like to feel like I know things. And that is all. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in another video. Late.